Last night, the Baltimore Ravens barely edged out the victory 28-25 over the Dallas Cowboys. What worked? What didn't? Let's discuss it. Let's talk Ravens with Yolanda. Today's video, we are going to discuss each player that makes up the offensive line. Good evening, Ravens flock. Welcome into the show. Tonight, we are going to discuss, kind of recap what happened last night against the Baltimore Ravens and the Dallas Cowboys. Yes, we won. We did not start the season 0-3, which I was nervous about, because I just felt like the first two games were just not in our favor. But I'm happy. I'm excited. I'm elated. I'm ecstatic even. Yes, because we won the game. That's great. There were several good takeaways from last night's game, but there were also some things that were not so good. We are going to discuss both sides. We'll start with what worked. For me, the biggest question mark, obviously, the offensive line. And I see you, Brandon Bazel. Thank you so much for being in the chat. Thanks for joining. For me, the biggest concern or question mark was how we were going to use Derrick Henry. But obviously, that is largely dependent upon whether we can create blocking, whether we can block for him and create lanes for him to run. And a lot of our questions were kind of answered. We still have some areas that we can grow, but let's just dive right in. There's football on tonight. I won't keep you here very long. That is my goal. And I even have a friend who's joining me. I'm telling you, this is my friend right here. And my friend is going to make sure that I stay on track tonight and that I do not go on a tangent and that I don't go down a rabbit hole. So if I start going off, if I start deviating from what we're supposed to talk about, my friend is going to tell me, you're doing it again. All right. Starting with, let's have a look at the quarterback stats. Let's take a look and see just what Lamar did last night. I say last night and we played yesterday at 4:00. You know what I meant. I see the regulars in here too. Tim Hughes, thank you for joining. Say hello to Connor and Odin for me. And Nana, thank you so much for joining. Big Reg is here, MDT Sports. All right. Lamar Jackson, looking at his stats from yesterday, he had 15 attempts in terms of his passing yards, 15 in terms of his passing, 15 attempts, 12 completions for a completion rate of 80%, or 80. And his quarterback rating was 96.8 for yesterday's game. 1 touchdown, 182 passing yards. 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, no sacks allowed. That is wonderful. I was concerned about that, especially because I know how athletic Micah Parsons is and his ability to really get after the quarterback. But I have to keep in mind, put it in proper perspective, we have one of the best to ever do it in the game at the quarterback position. So good to know that our quarterback remained upright for the majority of the game. Yeah, there were some pressures there. But looking at his QB rating of 96.8, for those who say that Lamar Jackson is not accurate, he can't throw the ball, he's just, he's not an accurate passer. Well, here are your stats right here. So there's that. In terms of his rushing yards, he did have some. As I mentioned, there was pressure coming toward him, so he's going to have to make some runs at some point. For him, rushing yards, 87. That is an improvement, and I will take it because it's much better than what we saw in terms of how many rushing yards Lamar Jackson, prior to going into this game, he was leading our team in rushing yards, despite us having Derrick Henry. That was a concern. So this, to me, I was really looking for, how is this offensive line going to do in terms of allowing Derrick Henry to be our leading rusher? And it was wonderful to see. For the most part, yes, it's an improvement. It's a step in the right direction. But We'll save all of the rest of it for later in the show. But one of the things that I took away from this game offensively, I appreciated from the first half of the game and all the way through that first drive, that first offensive drive in the third quarter, I appreciated Todd Monken's play calling. He was able to get the weapons, Lamar's weapons, involved early and often. We saw touches from Hill, Charlie Kolar. Shout out to Charlie Kolar for that huge down block, which set us up for a second touchdown. We saw Derrick Henry get involved. And let's have a look at Derrick Henry's stats, because this is where I really, really got excited. All right, let's take a look. So for Derrick Henry, in terms of yesterday's game, he had 25 carries, 151 rushing yards, averaging 6 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns, and he also had 1 reception for 23 yards. This was such a good stat for me to see, because this kind of goes back to what John Harbaugh said after the first game against the Chiefs. And as we can see here against the Chiefs, Derrick Henry had 13 carries, and kind of, the flock was up in arms like, wait, you have this high-powered running back and you're not really using him. And John Harbaugh said, well, we didn't sign him to have 30 yards, 30 carries per game. And I remember asking the question after I heard him, John Harbaugh's interview. I'm like, well, okay, maybe he doesn't have 30, but can he have like 20? So this game right here, 25 carries for Derrick Henry. That is wonderful to see. It shows us that, Harbaugh was wrong in his words of not really wanting to use Derrick Henry all that much. But look what happens when we do use him. Guess what? We win games. It's really that simple. So I was really pleased to see that. And knowing that we were able to, and another one, knowing that we were able to use our weapons and spread the ball throughout the field, keep the defense guessing, that was huge to me. That was great. I love to see it. Nelly, had a 56-yard catch and run, and that was thanks to several missed tackles by the Cowboys. But we are seeing how when we call a good game, or when Todd Monken really reaches into his bag and pulls out the secret sauce, meaning you don't have to have all of your playmakers on the field at once, or you don't have to have all of your playmakers making huge contributions. And as we'll see in a moment with Zay Flowers, it's about knowing when we need the players, what their strengths are, and using them in those crucial moments. That to me was great. We didn't see a lot of Nelly after that 56-yard catch, but we really didn't need to. Okay, maybe we could have seen him a little bit more in the fourth quarter when we started to kind of like go downhill a little bit, third quarter to fourth quarter, but we still had enough weapons in the arsenal that we were able to get the job done. So that's a positive. Let's build upon that. Let's take that, remember the feeling. Remember that each player who is out there, each person who is wearing a jersey for this team has something to contribute. Rashad Bateman, it was good to see him too. So I speak about the fact that our team did some things right, and I want to keep seeing us move in that direction, because we had a lot of questions because we were 0-2. Like, what is our offensive identity? I still am not 100% clear on that. Give me another week or two and maybe I'll be able to pinpoint that down, pinpoint that. But for now, I'm very excited that we were able to edge out the victory yesterday. As I said before, Lamar had to do Lamar had to run a little bit, not too much. And again, there were times where I did feel like he was playing hero ball because there was nothing open. the coverage weren't right. Something just, he didn't feel that, the players were going to be able to get us that first down and save the drive. He had to do it himself. So there was a bit of that I saw. But that's why he's here, because we can count on him in those moments. But beyond those moments that should be few and far between, continue to rely on our weapons like we did in this game for the most part. And I think we'll be in better footing moving forward. Let me take a quick look at the stats from Zay Flowers. This one right here, as you'll see in a moment, not very, oh my goodness, wow, you type. But I want to keep it again in proper perspective. In the game against the Cowboys, Zay Flowers had 3 receptions for 20 yards. But it was really the big one at the end in that fourth quarter that saved the drive on that crucial third down that kept us in the fight. Because had we come up short and had to punt the ball back over to Dallas, who at that point in the fourth quarter, they had already started to make a comeback. And if we had to give that ball back to Dallas, I don't know if we would have been able to, with our defense playing the way they did, I don't know if we would have been able to win the game if we had to give that ball back to Dallas. So huge thank you to Zay Flowers, who came up clutch for us late in the game. So I see Don Royal, good evening. Shout out to you. Songstress for real. The Rogue Pod is here. And Agnes said, yeah, Nelly played well. He did. And that's what we need. We don't need a lot of targets for each of our weapons. We just need targets we just need them to be able to connect with our quarterback and for them to make plays when their number is called. So those are some of the good things that I saw coming out of this game. A couple of other positive notes moving on to defense. I was pleased to see Nate Wiggins. It was good to see him back. Drop a comment, leave it a comment. Let me know what you think in the chat. Hi, Danity. Thank you so much. Yes, welcome everyone. Hit the like button and subscribe if you're new. We are on the road to 1K and we're getting there super fast. We're almost there. So you can help me with that. So yes, thank you. Let me know what you thought about Nate Wiggins. Debut, NFL, regular season football. I know he played in the preseason, but this is a regular season game. What were your thoughts about Zay? I keep calling him Zay. What were your thoughts about Nate Wiggins' debut matched up against CeeDee Lamb? Often. So I was just happy that he was able to play because, John Harbaugh's not the most forthcoming when it comes to players' injuries. And yeah, we heard he was close. Yes, he returned to practice, but what does that mean? To me, it's not anything definitive until I see the player on the field. So I was hopeful. I was grateful that Nate Wiggins was able to make his debut. I see, yeah, he did. Hendo from the Rogue Pod, he said Wiggins got roasted time and time again, and he caused that key fumble. I mean, that's to be expected. I was happy that we got to see him. I was not expecting him to be matched up with CeeDee Lamb almost every possession. No, I wasn't expecting that, but he's a rookie. He played well for him being a rookie, but as Hendo said, he got burnt several times. I don't know another way to say it, but I kind of expected that, especially with that matchup. CeeDee Lamb he's seasoned. He's an excellent receiver. He knows what he's doing. He's been in the league a few years. I mean, there's that. So, I'm going to take Big Reg's comment right here because I'm going to go off on a little tangent and tell you my little rabbit's going to come back if I go off on too much of a tangent. But I do want to take Big Reg's comment. I was going to talk about it a little bit later, but since you asked, what do you think about Ravens signing Yannick Ngakoue? I just heard about it an hour or so ago. And initially I thought, this is good, right? This is good. And it will come in handy because in the event that our pass rush is not where it needs to be, I thought our pass rush was very good game 1, game 2. I did feel like there was a little bit of drop off with Sands, Kyle Van Noy. He was my next person on the list to get to in terms of positives. But Sands, Kyle Van Noy, I thought there was a little bit of drop off in terms of sack production from our edge rushers and in this last game. So with that said, I think bringing in a, a player who is familiar with the Ravens, he played with us, I think, last in 2020. So a player who should be familiar with our system, assuming it hasn't changed all that much now that Zach Orr is our coordinator. I think it'll be a benefit to have depth there so that we don't have to rely so heavily on Kyle Van Noy. He can rotate and be a rotational piece, and I'm interested to see how he does, obviously, paired up alongside Odafe Owe. Agnes says he'll get better, and I think she's talking about Nate Wiggins. He will get better. He will get better. It's his first game, so I'm going to give him some grace, and I'm going to, I want to see incremental improvement in Nate. And Rogue Pod says, I don't know who 83 is, but he blew past him. I don't know either. If someone could let me know who 83 was or what was his position, then, but I know what you mean. He blew right past him. I remember seeing that. Yeah, certainly. I agree with you, Agnes. I think re-signing or us signing Yannick Ngakoue is nothing but a positive. I see we have with us Equip Institute. Good evening. Thank you for being here, Florence. And Rogue Pod says, Wink was here and the scheme is entirely different. It is a lot different. Wink was heavy on the blitz and, we're not as blitz heavy as we were when Wink was here, and it'll be different, but I'm sure there are parts to the defense that might still have a hint of familiarity. So even if it's 5%, I don't know. But yes, totally different system at the time that Yannick was last with us. Nate Wiggins will get better. I believe with his defense under Zach Orr, our seasoned players aren't doing much of anything out there, but I can attribute that to Zach Orr. Interesting thought. Interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I think with Zach Orr, and he'll be the start of where I think we can stand to improve what I think might not have worked as well as I would have liked. But I want to round up with a couple more positive points, and then I'll touch on Nana's comment. I really enjoyed seeing a proper use of Kyle Hamilton. I did. I thought the way we used Kyle Hamilton near the line of scrimmage was much better in this game than it was games 1 and 2. So that was a positive I took away. I mentioned already another positive was Kyle Van Noy with 2 sacks, and he's had 4 sacks in the last 2 games. That is great. Play calling by Todd Monken, very good. Amazing for the first half and through the first offensive drive of the third quarter. After that, it kind of just takes a little decline, so to speak. Another bright light, another positive. Our Darius Washington. I don't know. Let me know in the chat. Were you thinking our Darius Washington could have such an impact, especially seeing that the remainder of our secondary was almost seemingly MIA? But I was really pleased to see our Darius Washington. I think at one point in the game, he had 3 pass breakups right back to back to back. They kept throwing the ball in our Darius's direction, and he stood up, he stood tall and rose to the occasion every time. I really appreciate that. I really appreciated him for that. I was really happy to see that. Now, I will move on to the not so good. But before I do, let me say hello to Lady Laura Baltimore. Good evening. Our win wasn't pretty. No, it was not. Ooh, it was pretty for the first half of the game. And then after that, it was but I'm glad the world is not cooking Lamar today, because they are cooking Dak. They sure are. They are not giving Dak any grace. None. And I think that's just part and parcel of the quarterback position for some quarterbacks, because some quarterbacks, I guess, don't get the same treatment as others. But for Dak, he sure has been getting it today. I've seen that. Yes, Agnes says Kyle Van Noy. Kyle was letting that fullback pass him a couple times. He did. He did. He did. I was just more impressed with the fact that Zach Orr changed it up a little bit to get Kyle closer to the line of scrimmage where he can be utilized more. But yes, that fullback was wreaking havoc on a lot of people on this team. And, not a lot of teams employ fullbacks. This one does. I think there's Kyle Juszczyk in the 49ers. So there are a few teams that actually have fullbacks. But yes, Kyle got beat more than Wiggins. I'd have to look at a stat to see that. I don't know. I thought, and that might be true. That might be true. But it just seemed to me that Nate Wiggins got beat a lot more. But could be. Big Reg says, I've been trying to tell people about our Darius Washington since his rookie year. Look, I never really had a position on Darius either way. I didn't think he was great. I didn't think he was horrible. I just said, oh, okay, well, we have some, there's some extra hands in our secondary. But seeing him, wow, I was very impressed with him. Now, the not so good. These are the things that I think are holding our team back. These are the things that we must address immediately. I'll start with the obvious. Penalties. The penalties are terrible. They are horrible. Let's have a look really quickly on at the stats for both teams so that we can compare penalties. But there are some other stats there as well, but let's just have a look. So we can see against Dallas yesterday, passing yards, they had 361. We had 182. We beat them with rushing yards, 274 to their 51. And penalties, we had 13 for 105 yards to their 6 for 44. I understand a lot of us feel like, and I'm included in that same boat too. A lot of us feel like the refs aren't really calling fair play. They're not calling the penalties fairly. It's not equitable across the board. But one thing that I will say is we have to understand that that's how it's going to be for now, at least. If we look at the last 3 games, how many penalties did we look and see and say, that wasn't right? That was a bogus call. We should not have been called for that. Several. So that just lets me know we're not just playing against our opponent. For yesterday, it was the Cowboys. We're playing against the Cowboys and the refs. We have to have that mindset, but the penalties have to get cleaned up. There's no way that we can beat these teams when we're collecting penalties at the rate that we're going. And Lady Laura Baltimore says, but the team got to clean up their messes too. I agree. They have to clean up their messes. They do. All of it. This is a part of, we need to work on some things. And Don Royal, you beat me to it. Roquan, he is like 3rd on the list. But penalties to me show an undisciplined team. We did not look like we were well coached in that regard. That's something that I think falls largely on the head coach. And that's what I'm wanting to see more of. I'm wanting to see more of John Harbaugh take accountability for where he needs to take accountability. And penalties, I think, is one area where he absolutely needs to. Not saying he will, and I'm not going to hold my breath on that, but that's just something that I noticed. Another issue, huge, our secondary. We were able to stop the run. We're able to get our linebackers involved. Roquan, we'll get to him in a minute. But our secondary, we just seem to allow Dak to have the mindset that, hey, I can just throw the ball anywhere in the middle of the field because there's not going to be anybody there. And that's when I think there was a shift in how Dak was processing the game, and the play calling obviously changed too, because they said, wait, they realized secondary over here is not really showing up. So I'm going to take advantage of this all day and twice on Sunday. And they did that. So I need to see a bit more production. The miscommunications, lack of interceptions, lack of turnover, all of those things that we have been known for in our secondary. Again, no fly zone. That's not applicable yet. We're going to get there. I'm hoping we can, but we're not there yet. I know in Marlon's Instagram, where I guess his Instagram stories, he posted a video of, him trying to talk to Lamar, and Lamar like really wasn't having it, because he's like, listen, all this time in practice, you can collect an interception with me. Why aren't you doing it on the field? Like, I need your head to be in the game. I need you to focus. Like, that's what we need to be concentrating on. Roquan Smith, he looks slower than he was last year. He doesn't look as dominant as he did last year. There was an aura about the Ravens defense that said, if you are coming up against the Ravens, your offense better be ready. Your offense better beware, because we have the best of the best on this defense. We're not putting that stamp on our defense just yet. And I'll say this, and I've said this before. Zach Orr, in his first 3 games, I'm giving him some grace. The same grace that I gave Mike McDonald. At the time, when he was his first year, and we lost big time to the Miami Dolphins in brutal fashion, I had to take a step back and remember he was a rookie in terms of his first year at the defensive coordinator position. Same thing with Zach Orr. Am I still frustrated by it? Of course I am. Do I want us to be like, would I have loved to see us just turn over the reins to Zach Orr and then we just take flight? Absolutely. But here's one little distinction that I thought about. And if you are watching, I hope you are, or if you're watching on replay, this is for, I think the person's name is Boring. Boring had a comment for me earlier, and I had to respond to Boring. I didn't give the person that name. That's his or her handle, not me. But Boring made a comment that, hey, you got to remember, we went through the same thing with Mike McDonald when he took over. And that's true. We had to, allow for growing pains. However, the difference to me is when Mike McDonald took over from Martindale, whatever his name is, when he took over from Wink, he did not have what I would call a defense that was already serviceable, workable, and already in order. When Zach Orr took over from Mike McDonald had already spent years fine-tuning, adjusting, making the proper corrections, getting the ship on a path to just sail smoothly. So when Zach Orr took over, it was kind of like just maintain the status quo. Other than a few losses, such as Patrick Queen, Geno Stone, my mind is drawing a blank. Geno Stone, Patrick Queen, help me out, chat. Who else? 2 other ones that we lost. One other member of the secondary, I think. And then I think that might be it. Other than that, that's really it. We still have a lot of the foundational pieces in terms of our defensive players. Like I mentioned, we did lose a couple, but we still maintained 85 or more % of our players. So with that said, Zach Orr taking over is not exactly the same as when it was when Mike McDonald did. So for that, Ronald Darby. Thank you, Hendo. I couldn't remember. I was like, it was somebody else who went to the Jags. Ronald Darby. And beyond that, and obviously Jadeveon Clowney, that was the fourth one. And he was a big loss to me. That was huge. I will give him his flowers. That was a huge loss for us, I think. But other than those four, we're pretty much intact. So what is there a whole lot for Zach Orr to do? All he needed to do is just kind of stay the course. So scheme and play calling, Zach Orr needs to improve. Execution by our defense needs to improve. The fourth quarter collapses cannot happen. We faced the Buffalo Bills on Sunday at the bank, prime time, Sunday night. We can't afford to have the penalties, nor can we afford to have our defense not really show up. What's the purpose of having a lead on offense if our defense can't defend it? If our defense cannot get the offense off the field, 3 and out, run them out, get them off the field. Because that's certainly what was happening with us. We kept going 3 and out. Or it was maybe not 3 and out, but there were some, but we were not on the field very long in terms of our offense toward the end of the game. So the defense, and people say, oh, well, they were tired because they were on the field a lot. True enough. So that's something that Todd Monken needs to figure out. But so special teams. Let me move on to the last one. Special teams. We have to have the conversation. It might be difficult, but we still have to have it. Let me know in the chat if you're watching this on replay. Thank you so much. Welcome. What are your thoughts about Justin Tucker? He missed a field goal, 46 yards last game. Prior to that, there were 3 field goals missed in consecutive weeks. Some might say he is, and it's tough to even say on the decline because you don't want to say that, because for someone who's been, a bedrock for this special teams foundation, we don't want to, have that, like I said, difficult conversation. But someone also said it could be the place, the holder. And I said, ooh, there's a thought. But whatever it is, we have to figure it out because we cannot afford to continue to go into these games wondering from 45 yards, 46 yards, will this kick be good? I don't know. We'll have to see. So that is, I'll take a few comments. But I must say, I'm going to give credit where credit is due. That kicker over in the Cowboys, wow, he was amazing. I don't know his stats. I don't even know his name, but I don't know his stats. But he was outstanding. He's everything that we have seen Justin Tucker be for us. That's what he was for the Cowboys. I'm going to take a few comments, and then we're going to wrap up tonight. Before I take comments, another issue that I had, the not so good, obviously, was Zay's first onside kick, and which was not recovered. Problematic, but he redeemed himself for the second onside kick. So, okay, hopefully we won't see that anymore. I saw Sean Coles mention earlier, a little while ago, that, or maybe it was someone else. I don't see it right now. Yeah, it was Sean Coles. He said, we're running to the wrong side. Look, I'm going to take a couple comments. We did. We kept running to the wrong side. I didn't specify that in the things that we did wrong, but let's add that to the list. Run to the left was better for us because our left side of that offensive line for right now seems to be stronger than the right. That's not to say that the right side is not improving, but, Eye of Horus Taurus, Darby was not a loss. That's one way to look at it, but he's a loss from our roster. Whether he's a loss in terms of contribution, that's a total, that's a different conversation, but he's still a loss from our squad. Nana says, Mike McDonald had that Dolphins game a few years back, but not every game like Zach Orr is carrying it. McDonald left his playbook behind or at the least should have been able to follow through. Similar to what I was saying. Similar, very similar to what I was saying. The state of the defense when Mike McDonald took over probably looks totally different than the state of the defense when Zach Orr took over. And so before you can make a comment like, hey, you don't know anything about football, or you're not a real fan or something like that, before you can make a comment like that, I think you have to look at things in totality and proper perspective. Danity says, also, it's not like those players were replaced with better ones. The only one that I'm, out of the four that I named, the biggest loss to me, Antonio Taylor said Duvernay. Thank you, Antonio. I was only mentioning our losses in terms of players on defense at that time. But yes, you're right. We did lose several offensive players. Don't get me started on the O-line. But in terms of what I was speaking about earlier, there were 4 on the defense that we lost. But yeah, and going back to Danity's point, the biggest loss for me on defense would have been, as I mentioned earlier, Jadeveon Clowney. Chef Jude, good evening. Thank you so much for joining. But yeah, Sean Cole says that we should have been in the Super Bowl the last 3 years. What's really going to be interesting is how we approach the remainder of this season in terms of keeping our sights set at making the Super Bowl this year. It's too early. It's week 3. I'm not going to say, yeah, we're definitely going to make it, or no, we're absolutely not. We just have to see. Thank you, Professor Xavier. Geno Stone was a huge loss, 7 interceptions last year. He was. Yeah, Geno Stone was a loss too. So we need that, especially seeing as though we're not getting them right now. We're not getting the interceptions. I think I'd have to take a look at the stats to see if we had any interceptions. I don't believe so. This last game, maybe we did, maybe one. Danity said Tucker and Stout look terrible. We have to have the conversation. It's not going to be nice. It's not going to be comfortable, but we have to discuss it. We have to talk about it. Worst field goal percentage in the NFL. Ooh, Eye of Horus Taurus. Ooh. I mean, just, wow. I didn't know we were the worst, but I mean, if you can't make 46-yarder, then that's the problem. He said, y'all better leave Tucker alone. Look, Sean Coles, I'm not there. I am not here to bash Tucker, but certainly I put him on the things we need to clean up list, especially heading into next week's game. Do me a favor. If you are watching and you're enjoying the show, please take 2.5, hit the like button for me. It really helps the channel a lot. And if you are new, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Please subscribe and join the family. Agnes, she says, it is concerning about Tucker. Yeah, it is. It is. Let's see what happens this upcoming game. Let's talk about Tucker in more definitive terms and definitive fashion after this upcoming game. This is going to be huge for us. Nana said Cowboys player kicked a 65-yarder. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. One shorter than Tucker's NFL stat. Look, this is something that we, this is something that we're going to have to keep our eyes on. It's definitely something to look at. Eye of Horus Taurus says, no shade on Tucker. I'm just putting the stats out there. I appreciate you. I'm not saying that you're, saying it from a bad place, but it is what it is, and we can't overlook it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot to be excited about. Hopefully, we're going to see progress. We're going to see our team make steps in the right direction. And one thing I can say about football, there's always a life lesson to be learned. And watching Lamar Jackson after this during his presser after the game, one thing I saw is that he just was not satisfied. Yes, we won the game. We did. Did our offense put up enough points to win? We did. Was he satisfied? He wasn't. He wasn't satisfied with the way the remainder of the game, especially in that fourth quarter, how conservative we got in terms of our play calling. He wanted to score more points. So there's a life lesson to be learned in all of that. Always stay hungry for more. Never get complacent. Never get satisfied. Always strive for better and always strive for more. Well, that is it for tonight. I will see you back very soon on Thursday. You may see me sooner. I don't know, but I'll certainly be back here on Thursday to preview the game against the Buffalo Bills. Ooh, eesh. I don't know about that. Oh gosh, Agnes, you brought it up, and I guess I have to. The Pittsburgh Steelers, how are they 3-0? That makes me so mad. I just knew they were going to be last in the division. And, it's still early. They have a chance to kind of, botch their season away. But for right now, they lead our division. Not a good look. So we have a lot. We have an uphill climb. And Jared Green, thank you so much for joining. And Sean Cole says I wasn't happy. He wasn't happy either. Me either. Well, I take that back. I was ambivalent. I was happy that we didn't start 0-3, but I wanted us to have more of a definitive, dominant statement to say, yes, we're back on track, but I will take the win no matter what. And we came out relatively healthy. You can't beat that. Family, I wish you all a very good night. Go watch and enjoy some football. The Bengals are playing. We need to see if they're going to win. And the Bills are playing, our opponent. So I'm honing in on those games because obviously a division rival in the Bengals, but I also want to see how the Bills do because we play them. And I want to see kind of like, what's the state of their team heading into Sunday night's game. Anyway, well, thank you all so much for joining. Before you go, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and make sure that your post notifications are turned on so that you never miss content on this channel. I will see you very soon. You take care and stay safe. And always remember, go Ravens. God bless.